Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to talk again about leadership. And the concept of leadership is very important because so much of it is lacking in society. And I guess like the biggest shock that I ever had was understanding that most of the people around me were very dishonest and disingenuous people. Like they were not sincere. Now, if you get to know me, I always tell you stories about, oh, I struggle with this, or blah blah blah. This is what I did, and I don't tend to lie about things simply because lying for me takes actually more work than being honest. Like, if I lie to you about something, then that's more work to cover my tracks. So I'd rather just be honest about things I don't do, things I can't help you with, things I'm not going to change, so that you don't enter in an engagement with me or any sort of relationship with me that's based on false expectations. Now, a lot of people really like to lie and be disingenuous with the people around them, and why do I say that is because I experienced this a lot of time for the most of the majority of my adult life, right? I remember the biggest shock going to college was seeing all the people who just didn't seem like real people anymore, you know? I remember when I was in high school, like here's the difference between like my before I turned into adult and after I turned into adult. I remember when I was a kid, I hated most adults and I just could not like figure out why. But one of the things that I remember as a kid is that the adults were very strict and I could never joke around with them. And well, I think the biggest shock is like when I was in high school, I get to tell some jokes. And jokes are always like a little bit based on honest things that are uncomfortable truths, right? But that's what makes people laugh. And I remember the biggest shock was that when I went to college, I told a joke and nobody laughed. And then there came a point in society. So it's kind of like a societal shift, as well as me being older, where comedy essentially became dead. Like you take a look at do a quick Google search on the internet. Jerry Seinfeld says like he'll never go to a college campus anymore because they don't know how to laugh. Same with Chris Rock. Um, and so you essentially live in a society where everybody's trying to control you. Nobody wants to laugh, and they're very disingenuous, right? And I think that's why most of the society that we live in today is broken, just because we were convinced to follow broken leadership, right? And I'm gonna just kind of tell you because for whatever reason, I had some dreams. I guess you could call them dreams in the past, like week, where things that happened in my life, like, oh yeah, I remember that, right? Oh yeah, I remember why I'm like the way that I am because it's not because I was meant to think negatively of the world. It's just that the world screwed me over and over again and wasted my time. And I begged people that I knew, please don't waste my time. Let's do something together and learn and grow together. And they did not. And it took me a long time to figure out like what's the deal. You know what I mean? And so the reason I say that real leaders are desperately needed is because very few people even pretend to care. So you're surrounded, or maybe you're one of the lucky ones, but I'm surrounded by people who say that they're gonna do things and then never do it, right? And so whenever I guess like I was just really surprised, like how do these people like have jobs and make money? Because in order to make money, at least from my understanding of it, is that you have to provide a product or a service that people are willing to pay for, and I'd never be willing to pay for whatever you're providing, right? Just because it makes no sense to me. Like if you tell me, you ever experienced before where people tell you, like, invite you to like a meeting or something, like, hey, I'd love you for to come to this meeting, and we'll get to know each other, and then like they invite you, and then they pretend like you're not even there, like that happens to me all the time. And honestly, the only reason that I guess, like, sad to say, that I leveled up is not because of other people, it's because I've gotten rid of most of the people. It's like being a landlord, right? Most of the tenants are out there are very they don't take the process seriously, and they do things that make absolutely no sense in a housing shortage. So, um, I mean, long story short, um, very few people, let's say you're a landlord, will probably, if you know what you're doing, you won't let them in your house, because a lot of them just don't take the process seriously. They can't even show up. They can't respond to a text message. They say they're going to lease your place, and then they don't. And so that's why I kind of say, like, this is not for the kind of faint of heart. But you don't even have to be a landlord to experience this. It's just a society in general, right? And when you have a society in general from top to bottom that just does not work on a level where it's not based on trust, compassion, caring, but dishonesty, deceit, people pretending to do things rather than actually doing it. And here's the other thing too, like, I've never understood about the concept of just kind of putting on a charade and pretending to do stuff and then just not doing it. Just because in my mind that takes a lot more effort than just doing it. Um, but that's why real leaders are leading, and I talk about that a lot. One of the reasons why whenever I did like this niche consulting, where very few people, it's a field that people, yes, are involved in it, but the general public is not. One of the reasons that people beg me to work with them is essentially I just said what I was going to do, and I did it within like 1 or 2 days, right? And I respond to emails and messages really quickly, because I'm trying to create an environment which I think is foreign to a lot of people, where, hey, I'm actually, if I say that I'm going to lead you, I'm actually going to take care of you. Doesn't matter with your tenant or a student. It doesn't mean that I have all the answers, right? But I'm gonna, and if I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know, but let's try to find someone who does know, right? If there's something that you may be interested in, or I may refer you to like an article or a video if it's, out of my league, to tell you, hey, you should do this, right? But um, you know, most people, they just kind of pretend to care. They say, oh, let me help you out with that, and then you reach out to a question to them, and then you just kind of hear crickets. Or they'll say, oh, hey, I'd love to hang out with you, and then you call them, and again, crickets. It's really weird. The way that I think about it is that most of the people in my life are like salesmen who are trying to knock on my door to sell me a product, and then I'm eventually convinced that I want to buy the product, and then they never deliver, or they're nowhere to be found. It's weird. It's like, don't you want my money? Like, you know what I mean? And that's why, because there's so many people out there like there in society, um, two things are going to happen. One, because we live in a society where so many people are dishonest and use dishonesty, they're going to be suspicious of someone like me. I totally get that. Number two, there's going to be plenty of opportunities, because there are very few people who are consistent in what they're doing, in how, in that what comes out of their mouth actually translates into actions, right? And here's the thing about me. I'm not going to pretend to care. Either I'm going to care, or I'm not, right? This whole thing about pretending to care and all these charades, and actually, uh, people taking pictures in front of themselves about charitable causes, and then you just see them in real life, and you see their dishonest lifestyles. I mean, it's just common, right? So to me, it just makes no sense. Why not just do things the right way, where it'll be a lot easier for you rather than always having to cover your tracks over and over again, and then having to, let's say you're a dishonest employer or whatever, or having to cycle through people over and over again because that's kind of their game, right? But very few people these days value relationships. And because they don't value themselves, their economy is they have to scam you in order to get what they want. And there's a saying I always used to hear that in order to most people would rather steal $1 from you than make $1 million with you, right? Because that's their mindset and economy. I already know I live in that society. I'm not stupid, but I would rather, try to be like the person in the opposite direction, because I'm just sick of seeing, people fail over and over again and having to work around them, and not, being served when I'm supposed to be served by the people who are supposed to be my leaders, right? And we all need to be served by somebody else. Even CEOs need coaches, right? So don't think that you're just going to be an island where you do everything yourself. Don't ever think that. But as I want you to, if you're the type of person who's sick of the society that we live in, I essentially want you to step it up, right? I want you to step it up and be the change that no one else is willing to be, because most people just sit there and they just let things happen instead of trying to be the cause of what's happening. Okay. All right. So this is a Korean Atlanta mentorship. If you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google form link below. Also, you can email us by finding out our email address at the About page of the YouTube channel. If you have any comments, questions, leave below, and we will see you next time.